Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Gluten Free and Celiac Mixing with Lisa. I just thought you guys might be interested to see how I've adapted a cookie dough recipe tonight using all ingredients that were in my fridge and freezer. I did not purchase any special ingredients to make this. And then I have adapted a couple of recipes. I had a quick squeeze at some recipes for little dumplings for the top of my soup. Didn't find what I wanted, so made my own. So if you come and have a look over here at my TM7, this is the recipe that I've made. So you can see we've got our creamy mustard chicken stew. So I have followed this recipe from scratch, so followed it step by step. The only adaptation I've made to the stew, of course you can see I've done it in my 6, because my TM7 bowl's in the dishwasher. I made zucchini slice for lunch today, so the bowl is in the dishwasher. Cannot wait for spare bowls to come available to purchase for the TM7. But I've made the stew in my TM6, so here's the stew. So for this one, I followed the recipe exactly, but I did a little taste test towards the end, and I felt, even though I'm going to be baking it, which isn't in the recipe, I felt the potatoes are still a little firm, so I added 5 extra minutes, and then I also made a little corn flour slurry using a little bit of cream and water, and I stirred that through. I want my stew to be really thick, not soupy. So the stew is done. At this point in the recipe, the Thermomix says to eat the stew, but I am going to change it a little bit. So let's pour the stew into my beautiful casserole dish. So this is the Fira casserole dish. I absolutely love this dish, and I would like to share with you that for only the next, 2 weeks or so, till the end of winter, the Fira cast iron ware is part of our host reward options. So if you've been thinking about getting some beautiful cast iron in your kitchen, now is the time just for hosting a cooking demo. So with me, that would be a virtual demo unless you're local. Just for hosting, you get a discounted Fira cast iron cookware. But if somebody purchases at your demo, you get a heavily discounted Fira cast iron cookware. So there's our stew in. Now, what can we see here? This is the dumpling dough that I've made. So I'm going to write the recipe up and share it. But you may remember last week I had a whole bunch of beautiful parsley given to me by a beautiful colleague. And I wanted to use that parsley, and I wanted to make a gluten-free dumpling for the top of my stew. So these are my parsley and parmesan dumplings. It took me no time at all. I reckon 4 minutes and it was done. It was so easy. I have used my favorite Well and Good self-raising flour, and my plan is just to roll them out into small bowls and pop them over the top of my beautiful creamy mustard chicken stew. So talking about the ingredients, we have got husband, you're filming, would you agree that we have got really full freezers here?
Yes.
Yeah, so our freezers are overflowing. So it is my goal to make as many dishes using ingredients that I have that I do not need to purchase. So let me think. Everything came out of the freezer except the potatoes. So my beautiful mother-in-law is away at the moment, having just a wee little holiday, and she gave me a bag of potatoes before she headed off that she had purchased but not got to using. So I had some potatoes in the pantry. I had brown onions, because who doesn't always have brown onions? I had some cream in the fridge that needed using, and that's all I think that was fresh. Then I knew in the freezer that I had lots of chicken breast. So what I do is when I purchase chicken breast in bulk, so usually that's from Costco, I then take the chicken breast and chop it up, dice it up if you like, into chunky dice, and freeze it into Ziploc bags as flat as I can so that they'll defrost really quickly. So I knew I had chicken, I knew I had potatoes, I knew I had parsley. What could I make? I searched cookie dough using the chicken and potatoes search, and I found this beautiful creamy mustard chicken stew. Dijon mustard is the base of the mustard flavor, which who doesn't have in their pantries anyway? Fridge, I should say. My mustard is in the fridge. So I decided to get it done, and it wasn't long. Hubby went out to Bunnings, and while he was gone, I was scrolling cookie dough, and I thought, yes, I'm going to make this for dinner. So off I went, and then I thought, you know what? How much better would this be if it was baked with some cheesy dumplings over the top? So I looked on cookie dough, and I looked in the recipe community, and I found lots of dumplings, but nothing that was quite what I wanted. So what I've done is combined a few recipes. So I was inspired by a couple on the recipe community, and then on cookie dough there's a There's a beef cobbler with polenta dumplings, and there is I think it's called a beef stew with buttermilk dumplings. So I kind of looked through those recipes. Now guys, none of these recipes are written gluten-free. This is why you shouldn't limit yourself entirely to searching for a gluten-free recipe. If you've been around long enough, you know that the answer is good quality flour. So I found some recipes, not quite what I wanted, and I adapted. So these are my parsley parmesan dumplings. I added more parmesan than the initial couple of recipes I saw, and I also switched all the herbs to parsley. You can see by the vibrant green nature of these dumplings that I have used a ton of parsley. I don't want to waste any of it, so I threw a huge handful in. That brings me back to another adaptation in the stew. I've just remembered. The stew actually calls for fresh thyme. I do have some fresh thyme out in the garden, but I have fresh parsley wilting in the fridge. So I don't know if you can see all those lovely flecks of green throughout my stew, but I've used fresh parsley. And then I think I told you already, I made a cornflour slurry. I wanted to thicken it up really nice. Also, when I was pouring the cream in, I probably poured in more than the recipe called for. So perhaps it was a little wetter, but I'm baking it. So I want a really thick, rich, creamy stew. Yeah, I don't know what's happening on the other side of the camera, but I'm guessing there's any questions. No, anyone saying hello? Is anybody watching? Am I talking to myself?
There's people watching.
There's people here. Does anybody have any questions? Or tell me where you're tuning in from, or tell me what you're having for dinner. We're almost ready to get this baby into the oven. Do you know, I thought at the start, as I was rolling these dumplings, that I was going to run out of dumpling mix, but I was wrong, was I not? Have we got any questions? It's a beautiful Saturday. What are people cooking? Are you going out for dinner? Are you having friends over, takeaway, or have you cooked a beautiful dish for your family? What do we think of this? Do we like the sound of parmesan and parsley dumplings? I was inspired by the polenta dumplings. Here we go, almost ready. So I popped the oven on to 180 degrees. I am going to sprinkle some cheddar cheese, just some grated cheese over the top, because who doesn't love a little bit of cheesy goodness crust over the top of their stew? I think we've got room for, let's go 3 more. Where can we squeeze one in? You guys see a spot? There we go. All right, 1 more. And I reckon we can make room right there. All right, so let me just grab the cheese. You guys admire this beautiful stew while I get the cheese. All right. Now you can of course grate your own cheese in a Thermomix. I did a whole bunch of grating cheese today for my zucchini slice, but I've got grated cheese and last minute, why not? So let's just sprinkle some beautiful cheese over the top. Then I'm gonna pop that into my oven. So I've preheated my oven, 180 degrees. And honestly, I think about 20 minutes should do it. The chicken is cooked, the potatoes are essentially cooked. So I reckon 20 minutes we'll get that lovely dumpling cook and that beautiful cheesy crust we're going for. So what do we think? Do we have any feedback? No? I'm going to assume no.
A few people saying hi.
Oh, hi everybody. This is my creamy mustard chicken and potato stew with parmesan and parsley dumplings. Going into the oven now. Stay tuned. Thanks for joining everybody. I'm Lisa from Gluten Free and Celiac Mixing, and that's what's happening for dinner here tonight.